in this budget bill. So I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
My thought is dependent upon whether or not we think this money's going to come back to us in housing. If we think it's really a one-time loan, let's put as much subsidy as we can and take advantage of it before the General Assembly takes it away again. If we think that they will actually recycle it, then there's just really no way of knowing that they're going to feel like tomorrow. Then yeah, loans and put it down because we always need new sources of funding. But it's definitely, some money has to come back out of this.
I guess that's a good point. Does the language specify that the money is paid back?
Money, it says the money's paid back to the fund. That's what it says.
And the fund contributing account is just not.
But that doesn't mean that we keep the housing trust fund, correct?
That's correct. Like we could have this little handful of, spare change in the years going forward. And, even if we did full repayment, principal and interest, and that's going to accumulate very slowly. Other ideas? Because Bob's right, that's very key. And interest rates, how should we determine interest rates? Yes.
We have a loan fund here that we've set up among different housing organizations. But we've done it at 0% interest, just to keep it simple. And when you borrow the money, you state how long you need it for, which is typically from 1 to 2 to 3 years. And then it all gets paid back in one sum.
So it's a pretty short term.
It's a pretty short-term loan. It's used to help get a project off the ground. And it is expected to be paid back. And I think it's been a pretty good model for how relatively small chunks of money, $25,000 to $100,000, can get used to get a project over a hump, with the expectation that in a relatively short period of time, it will go back.
What sort of project are you talking about that would require money over and help like that?
It's been, rental development. Sometimes we've done it with using it as construction funding on some subdivisions. And those are probably the two things. I built a home for the American Piedmont, and they, and then use that to get it to cover some of the construction costs.
The interest rates, how do we figure out what the interest rate is?
Definitely below market.
Pardon?
Definitely below market.
Below market.
It's almost negative.
Yeah.
We'll get paid to borrow.
Okay, what about minimum and maximum amounts? Usually we make like one big $7 million loan and call it done.
If your job's paid back.
Pardon?
Only if it's paid back.
Yeah, only if it's paid back. Quick.
I think that there might be a benefit in having in the loans a pool for smaller loans and a pool for larger loans, because I work for a very small nonprofit and we could use, we don't need $1 million loan, probably don't even need a $500,000 loan.
Okay.
We could
So
use
give it kind of a
50 to
small
100,000.
project pool, if you will. Okay. Okay. It says we're supposed to maximize leveraging. Any ideas on how we should do that?
The most basic is that there's got to be at least one other funding source.
Any other thoughts?
Is there already kind of an assumption, I guess, that this money would be paired with existing DHCD and DHCD programs?
The language does not say that, but I think it's a reasonable expectation. Because if we're supposed to maximize leveraging, certainly we would not be looking for the trust fund to be the sole funding source. Somebody else is going to have to bring some money to the table.
I mean, just again, my organization, we use tax credits from DHCD,
use whatever we find from DHCD to partner this money with other existing established successful programs. I think would be good. And again, I'm just speaking from our organization. I don't know if others feel like maybe DHCD and DHD programs aren't fully sufficient, so let's use this for something else. But I think to pair them with existing programs from those two organizations would work well.
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily put those limits on our main, we just get home funds, that's our other source, but we don't get it from DHCD and DHDA. We get it from the planning
Okay,
district.
so any pretty much any other existing program.
And if our county wanted to miraculously pony up a big chunk of money, I don't think that should be that should be making it more difficult for us to get this money. I think just one other funding source, period.
At least one.
Yes, at least one.
So, I'm sorry, can I ask? Well, are you saying like the more the better, or just?
No, I'm saying don't restrict, that it has to be DHCD or DHDA money
Oh,
going
no.
into the
I think that
project.
we would be happy to see any other person's money, any other money. I love other people's money.
I had heard that there was discussion that there would be benefit in going with more money going to localities that already have an existing housing trust fund, and if somebody.
Now, that provision did not make it into this version. Okay, it was in some of the bills that were proposed, but it did not make it into this language.
Is somebody who works in 3 rural counties who will never have a housing trust fund. I think that doesn't.
Shea, I'd like to, the leveraging housing, leveraging, using it for leverage. There's a couple things that occur to me. One is using the money to be first in oftentimes, so that we have an option for a first in, so that we can show funding approval when we're out there searching for other funds. And then secondly, there are a number of times we're coming up on options where interest rates for banks, et cetera, are too high, and say construction loans, so we don't borrow locally. We can have this fund as a partner at a lower interest rate. We can leverage local banks and so forth in projects, of course. Make it a little simpler to get construction loans and to do and other sorts of funds we might need.
Okay, to leverage
And I want to
access
leverage
to.
local funding that's outside the government system if possible.
So in that case, I'm just clarifying that first about sort of at least one of the funding source, that what you're saying is flexible enough to say that this is the first flexible source, this is the first source of funds of the project, but that because we have this, we'll be the second source.
That's
Right.
That's what
That's
it
right,
is.
yes.
Yeah.
It will facilitate your getting.
Right, exactly, exactly.
Now, let's shift gears a little bit. The budget language talks about up to 20% can be used for efforts to reduce homelessness. So, should that be up to 20%, or should it be something lower? We have to do at least 80% towards loans. That's clear. But we can go higher than that because it gives us the option of using less than 20% for activities associated with reducing homelessness.
20%.
What?
I think we need the 20%. Especially given that there's a lot of flexibility in what you do for that 20%.
Okay. Anybody think we should make it less? Okay.
Would you have it so that if we had a request for less, you could move more into the loan fund?
That's a possibility if requests were less. Okay. So, do you think we should prioritize among the potential activities for homelessness? Temporary rental assistance, housing stabilization services, foreclosure counseling, redevelopment assistance? You think some of those should be float higher than the others, or should we just kind